Hey guys, it's Chris here with this week's creative class, and we have a dueling patterns. It's been a little while since we've had a dueling patterns. So at this time, it's dueling patterns, make it from the heart, volume 6, pattern 9. So this is a single page layout, and so because this class is also featured in the month of October, I thought we would do a Halloween version of this pattern. But the techniques that I added to this sketch, you can use it on anything. And so I think you're going to find this a little bit fun. Like I said, I've added a couple of things here, but I'm going to add my desk in here right now, and we'll just talk about, I'll show you the pattern, and then I'll show you where I took it and the things that I've added to it. And something that I think you'll find makes it a little bit easier and a little bit better use of paper. Okay. So here is our sketch. Sorry. So as you can see here, right, it's a single page sketch, and in the background it's a subtle detail, but there's two large triangles that create the background. And when you look at them here, that is two pieces of 11 1/4 by 11 1/4 paper. So I'm going to show you how we're going to create the same look using way less paper. So that is that'll be our first tip along the way. So I think I'm just going to move this out of the way. So here, like quite often when I start to play around with an idea or a technique, I'll do just a mock-up. So I just wanted to show you that, like, to get these two triangles, right, that's a lot of paper that you're using. Now here, obviously, because I was just creating a template, I just used the reverse side, which is one option. If you would like to get the background, is just to play with the two-tone cardstock and use the 11 1/4 by 11 1/4 and then cut it diagonally and then flip it to the other side. But I'm going to break it down a little bit, and we're going to do something a little bit different using much smaller pieces. And then I'm going to just show you how you can use the same idea with different sizes. So that'll be the first thing. As we build it, I'll show you exactly what I've done to create my triangles in the background. Then, like I said, I wanted to play with the spooky Halloween suite because I said we're in October. So when I pulled out all the products and I saw this fun spider web, I thought, what can we do with that? And so I've created my spider webs and all my accent pieces with I'm sure that the shine will show up on camera. So I actually have used the iridescent bags as part of the iridescent treat bags that also coordinate with this to create my spider webs and my titles. So when I show you how to do this, you can obviously use this on like anything. It would look pretty on like flowers or other titles. I did it repeatedly in lots of different spots, so you'll see how each each paper looks different with the iridescent bag on it. Then also I did add these little spiders, which are part of one of the dies, and I wanted them to be like scary, spooky. So they're actually from the velvet paper. So I inked up the velvet paper to create the little spiders, and they are literally fuzzy. So don't forget that you can actually recolor that velvet paper to suit a different project if you wanted to. Okay, so first things, I'm just going to move a few things out of my way, and we're going to talk about creating the large triangles. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to start like all the measurements are on your sketch, right? So I'm not going to go over the measurements as we go because you'll see to the whole process as we go. But I have pre-cut all my cardstock. I'm going to add here just a white layer because it's easier for me to demonstrate when I'm teaching. You do not need to add this white layer that I have cut right here. You can add your strips on directly onto your background paper. So, so I'm going to move some stuff out of the way here. So these are inside panels, which I'll attach together in a second. So here is what I wanted to do to create the illusion of that 11 1/4 by 11 1/4 triangle cut in half. So you can cut smaller strips, and we're going to miter the corners, right? So I have one with the counties at the top and one at the side. And then I have the purple over here and down here. And when you look at my layout, maybe I'll just zoom out a little bit, sorry. I get the same illusion of the two triangles, but with very small amounts of paper. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do here. So these strips, and this technique works with any size, and that's why I have these ones here. So each of these is just a different size. So I believe this is like 1-inch strips, right? And I've mitered the corner to give that illusion. If you wanted wider strips, these, so the ones we're using today are 1 1/4. This is 1 1/2. And then I just wanted to show you, you could also use it for larger. So like this is 2 3/4. And I've just mitered the corner, right? And you would create, like obviously you would create the longer border. But I just, I cut these out so that you could see you can actually do the same method with any size you want. You can also layer them up. So if you wanted like a really wide border, right? And then a little bit wider and then come down to just a skinny border. You can like build on this whole concept. So if you're going to do this without the white piece, like I said, it's just easier and visually, I think it communicates visually easier to see it on this piece of paper, but you don't need this piece of paper. You would simply line up your strips that we're going to cut with the 1/4 inch gap from the outside, right? So, but I'm just going to move this out of the way for right now. So we set up our pieces of paper, right? And this is what we want it to look like in the end. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to miter this corner here. So all I have to do, move those to the side. So I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive just so that they stay together. I'm lining the two pieces up in the corner. And now I can grab my trimmer and I'm putting my corner tip on the track with the bottom. So now I have my top piece with a mitered corner. And this is my side piece. So I'll move my trimmer out of the way for a second. So now I have my purple piece we're going to add to the bottom. same thing. My strips are now in the track. Okay, so now I have one side that's all ready to go. So I want to keep this in the same order so that they'll fit back together like a puzzle. So now this is my side. So if you would prefer, feel free to use the full piece of paper. I just thought that this was a much, like you all have those pieces of pattern paper that you want to use like a lot of, like the candy was a super cute print, right? So I didn't maybe necessarily want to use 11 1/4 piece of paper to fill my whole background. Okay, so now I have my 2 pieces for my bottom here. And I just have my last corner here to cut. There we go. Now, like I said, at this point, you guys can just adhere this right to your background, but I wanted you to visually be able to see what was happening. So like I said, you can use this for any size that you want. And depending on how wide you make your strips, right, that determines how wide your border is. So, like I said, if you want, feel free to cut out the triangles the way that it was originally designed. This is just another option for you. And like I said, right, you can do any size that you want for your layout. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my base together because we've got it here, and then we're going to go over how to create all the shiny pieces with the iridescent bags. And some of the different things that you could do with it. So there we go. And then I have a piece of black. And then pumpkin pie. Okay. So now we get to do some of the fun stuff. So I'm going to show you how I created the shine and got the iridescent bags to stay on the cardstock. And I'll show you right now too where everything else came from. So these are the iridescent bags. There's 20 in here. So a couple of things. You can actually, oh, this one's already cut open. Here we go. You can take the bag just the way it is. And insert a piece of cardstock. And heat it with your heat tool to shrink wrap it onto the cardstock. But that does not adhere it to your cardstock. So, but that is another technique that you can do with these bags, is they do shrink if you heat them onto your cardstock, right? But I wanted something that was adhered to the cardstock. And then I loved the ability to play with all the different colors. So I used an adhesive sheet on my cardstock and one piece of the bag. So I just put my scissors in and cut it down to one layer. So I have one of those right here. So we're going to create this basically. So it's adhered to the front of this piece of petunia pop and it's not coming off. So you can run it through your die cutting machine, or you can also emboss it with an embossing folder and then run it through your die cutting machine. So I'm going to do that all the way through. I did that for the little title boo down here. I didn't do it with all the pieces. Most of the pieces are just, we're going to do this technique and then I cut them. So you can see here, this is just the cardstock. And then I've adhered my my bag and then ran it through the die cutting machine. I just left them all in here because it was easier so I wouldn't lose the pieces. Here you can see this is the black for the spider webs. This is Daffodil Delight. So I'm going to, though, and then I have a piece of petunia pop here. But I will adhere this to this Granny Apple Green. And then I'll show you where all the other parts came from. So, right, I've cut apart the bag. So this is just a single sheet of the bag. This is my adhesive sheet. If you're using the two-tone cardstock, decide which side you want up, right? Because you get two. So I've just peeled off the one side. So now, right, my whole piece of cardstock is sticky. And I'm just going to lay my bag down on top. And then I can smooth it out. Okay, so then I die cut the pieces, right? So the pieces that I did this for are the spider web, the Halloween here, and then the boo and the eek. So, and I'll show you where everything came from. So most of it, the spider web, the little spider we'll make in a second, the boo, the eek, the journaling box came from this set, which is Fright Night. Then my little banner that's over here, it's not shiny, but I did use this. Oh, no, sorry. This is where I got the Halloween from. And that's Words for the Season. Sorry about that. And then from this set, the Spooky Halloween, I use this cute little bat tag that we'll put at the top here. And that is maybe it that I used from this set. Sorry, I was just trying to. So that's where everything came from. And this is the banner I used, sorry, in the Petunia Pop. So mostly everything came from Fright Night, with just the Halloween coming from the Words of the Season, and then the little tag here coming from the Spooky Halloween. But like I said, I'm going to show you how I also then ran this through with embossing folder to get yet another look. So just don't think that you just have to do the one technique. If you want to elevate it, you can add more to it. And I picked the exposed brick because I thought it kind of went well with Halloween. And like I said, I just did the little boo title, but it was more just kind of like an experiment to see what would happen. So I'm going to add the Granny Apple Green in here. And I will just run it through my embossing machine. Okay, my machine is just off to the side, so I just did it over there. But so now you can see, like, that is super cool. And same thing, you could cut something different than the title, right? You could cut a piece to add to a scrapbooking layout or a card, for example, right? This technique you don't have to just use on a scrapbooking layout. And at the end, I'll show you the card that I use the technique on. So now basically it's just like simple assembly. Oh, we'll do the spiders too now at the same time. And the spider also came from the Fright Night. So it's this right here. So this is the velvet paper. It's got texture to it. You can feel it. It's got a direction to it even, right? So if you brush it one way, you're going with the grain. If you brush it the other way, you're going against the grain. So like I said, I knew I wanted to have just some like furry spiders. So you can add ink to this paper. It takes the ink really well. So I'll just grab my blending brush. I actually think I'm going to do a different color so you can see it a little bit better, or see that you can do other things with it. So this is the basic gray. You can see here what the spiders look like. And I obviously, oh no, I don't have enough spiders, I don't think. Okay, we're going to actually do spiders. So I will have to die cut my spiders after. So like I said, I just took the velvet paper, loaded up ink on my brush. And this, I didn't necessarily so worry about tapping it off because I also kind of wanted those different layers of ink. And I can make it darker or lighter in different spots. And I just think it really kind of brought the spiders to life. You can even load it up, right, and tap it down so that some of the spots are darker than others. So now I'm just going to grab my spider die, like I said, which is from the Fright Night. And I did 3 spiders. So I will just die cut 3 spiders and then we're ready to assemble. Okay, so here are my 3 scary spiders and I love them. I love the way they turned out and I think they just make everything a little bit spookier. So the other prep step that I did is I did turn this piece, this tag, into a journaling box. And so I'm just going to add a little bit of splatter to the back of the box to make it also just not be quite so stark white. So I'm just going to grab pumpkin pie. And petunia pop, or there we go. Oh, sorry about that. And this is just white willow, right? And I'm just going to use my brush and like I said, I just wanted kind of a little bit of splatter in the background. You could obviously just do this with your ink too, or not at all. So I'm just going to put this aside. Okay, so now I have all of my pieces, I think, ready to go. The only other thing I did want to mention is on the sketch, they had a whole bunch of 2x2 photos in this lower corner. So I did decide to mat it just so that you could actually see it better on my layout. So these are all just 2x2s and then like the mat measurements on the sketch, right? But so for this version, I just wanted to show you, you can also then just switch that out, right? So here I have a 4x6 that I'm just going to replace for my group of 2x2s. So you could do whichever you want, right? Remember that that's half the fun of the sketch, right? Is to be able to switch things up to suit your layout or your papers or whatever collection you want to play with. So then I do have 3 4x3s. So this one's on Daffodil Light and these are 2 on Petunia Pop. And I did tie some twine around these photo boxes. Okay, and then all we have to do is kind of put our clusters together. So I am actually going to, let's adhere these down. So, and they just kind of overlap. And then I'm going to tuck my spider webs and stuff in at the top. Okay, so for up in this corner, I have this little back tab that we're just going to fold over. You could tuck it behind. You could also just cut off. Why don't we just do that? I'll show you what I mean. You could just cut it off because you're not actually going to see this back part. So I'll just cut right on the score lines there. Okay, so we have that piece. Then we have 2 spider webs for this corner, and you can see, right, they've got the iridescent bags on them, on the black cardstock, sorry. So I'll just add some glue, and I'm going to tuck those in first. And then I can adhere down my tag. And then, like I said, the title here is Halloween at the top. So I'm just going to pop my centers out of my letters. And obviously you do not, if you don't want to, you do not have to add the bags to your die cuts. You can just use the cardstock, or you can also, if you still have liquid glue, it's kind of that same look where you get the shine by adding like just a shiny layer, right? So if you still have liquid glass or the Stampin' Up! the fine tip glue pen, you can do the same thing. Just make sure, right, that you let it dry. beforehand, but it's kind of the same idea. Sorry, I think I have glue on my fingers, so my little pieces are not coming out very easily. They're sticking to my fingers. There we go. Okay, so I'll start with my H. There we go. And then I'm going to put a spider in the spider web, and I'm going to use a mini dimensional. I think they're small enough. If not, I can just cut a piece off. There we go. Now we'll add 2 more spider webs up in this corner. So 1, and then the second one. Then we have another spider for up there. And then the last thing to do is to just build my little journaling cluster and then add the embellishments. So, right, I have the outside of this frame. And then our splattered inside. Then I have the banner. We'll add the eek. And then I have the boo for the bottom. Oh, here's my spider. It's upside down. I couldn't see it. And then I added a spider here. So then the last thing is I did add the coordinating embellishment. The sparkling stars, which their technical name is Shimmer Star Foam Stickers. So, and I added some into each of the clusters. So we can just do that quickly. Because we already got so much glitter going on, or shine, I guess I should say, not really glitter. And then in the top clusters, I did use the black ones. There we go. So I'm just going to quickly reference the difference between the two of them. But basically, right, the only difference is I just swapped out for a 4x6 versus all the 2x2s. So I hope you guys enjoyed this technique with the treat bags and the creating the background triangles just a little bit differently to kind of save on paper. So then the other thing I wanted to show you was that I did use the same technique, right, on this card. So it's just basic gray and then all the spider webs in the background. This is also from that Fright Night. But so it has this fun sparkle or shine. I should stop saying sparkle because it's actually just shine in the background for this card. And so the same techniques, right? Just always, I like to remind you, always just because you see something used on a scrapbooking layout or a card, a technique doesn't mean that you can't translate it like vice versa or to a mini album or a piece of home decor. All of those fun things. So I think that's what I've got for you guys today. If you have any questions, sorry, let me just move my stuff out of the way here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, and I will come back. If you drop them into the comments below, no matter where they are, I will kind of try and circle back every once in a while and look for comments. If there happens to be a question I can address. I think it's pretty, I'm hoping it's pretty easy, but a fun little technique to kind of just add to your suitcase of fun things to apply to your paper crafting. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Oh my goodness, sorry. That's what I've got for you guys today. I hope you have an awesome day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, guys.